Welcome to episode 239 of the Campus Comics Cast, and we are pleased to announce that Mike Atchison is being promoted to Editor-in-Chief of the Campus Comics Cast, replacing Scott Reed in all capacities. So, Mike, are you excited about your new role on the podcast?
I don't know what's going on here, folks, but clearly Scott I think he's a little delusional.
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, I just do what I'm told. I'm a loyal soldier.
So that's my little in joke on the news this week. This is Scott Reed. I'm joined by,
Mike Atchison.
and Marvel, of course, announced that Stephen Wacker is the new editor-in-chief, replacing C.B. Cebulski in that role. Now, I feel like C.B. Cebulski is getting a demotion here, being moved to the editor for Asia Originals. But so it's kind of interesting that they, kept CB Cebulski on when they're bringing in somebody to replace him. Do you have any initial thoughts about that change up there at Marvel?
Other than my memory tells me, he was overseas for some time before he came back over here a few years ago to be the editor in chief. So I don't know how much of this was, hey, you know what, I'm okay with this, or how much of it was, a Napoleon style exile, to keep his paycheck or whatever. Either way, Marvel has struggled to really get some traction in the last few years under his leadership. So who
Yeah,
knows?
I have to feel like it has something to do with sales numbers. Really DC's kind of putting it to Marvel right now, and for the longest time it was the other way around. So, what is it?
Well,
My how the turntables turn, or something,
yeah,
whatever
how
your
the
office
tables
quote.
turn. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was making an office joke. So, um,
Oh,
but but yeah. So
right over my
we'll
head.
we'll see what happens over at Marvel with this change up. Obviously, they cannot right the ship immediately. So
Yeah.
hopefully, we'll see Marvel sneaking a few more issues into the top 10 and not being completely dominated by DC as it has been for the last several months, basically since the
Yeah.
start of the Absolute Universe. So,
Well, I think Stephen Wacker, he comes with some good credentials. He's spent time at DC and Marvel, and I was looking here on Wikipedia. He has some awards for favorite editor, editor of the year, that kind of thing. So
okay.
maybe they'll do well.
Well, you ready to dig into our main topics here?
Yes, let's do that.
All right, so in this episode, we're going to cover the first 5 appearances of Nexus and then talk about the DC series Superman Secret Identity. And if time allows, we'll pop in the CLZ Shake just to see how that goes. So now, Mike, we are covering, let's see, Nexus 1, 2, and 3, which is the first volume, black and white, and then
Hmm.
issues 1 and 2, still by Capital Comics, which is then in color, created by Mike Barron and Steve the Dude Rude, as he is known by.
Hmm.
Do you have anything that you want to add as far as origin or pre-story before we kind of dive into Nexus?
I learned when I was about a year ago at a conference in Madison, Wisconsin. I interviewed at a couple shops. One was Westfield, which the Baron and Rude had some affiliation with. I know they promoted some things through Westfield Comics back in the 80s. They'd been around as a mail order place primarily, but now they also have a physical shop. Anyway, I learned that both, Baron, Steve Rude, I think I forgot who their editor, Richard Bruning. I think he's from up there. So yeah, it's very much a Madison, Wisconsin centric group of creators here. So, and I mean, Capital Comics is named after Madison, Wisconsin, which is the capital of the state. So,
Okay. All right. So Mike, do you remember how you were first introduced to the character of Nexus?
like so many of these 80s comics, I am sure 80s independent comics, I should say, I'm sure that I seen Nexus in an ad or read an article about him in a fanzine or even maybe like Overstreet's buyer's guide, but I've never read anything of him before we prepared for this episode.
Well, I was thinking about it just a little bit, and my earliest recollection, and I had not read, I don't recall ever reading any Nexus prior to this, but I do remember seeing, and I had to jump on a Comics Price Guide to kind of find this particular issue, and now I've lost my tab that had that in it. There it is. Um, there was a series in 1988 called Crossroads, and this is the point where First Comics was producing or distributing, I don't know all the details, a Nexus. And in this Crossroads, they would take a bunch of their creator owned properties and kind of had these crossover stories. It was a 5 issue series, and like the all the covers were done by Steve Roots. Like the first issue is Grendel and John Sable, the second Grendel, that is.
Hmm.
And then there was a John Sable Badger, and then there was a Badger American flag for the third issue. The fourth issue was Grimjack and Judah Maccabee, who shows up here in our Nexus stories. All right. And then the final issue was Grimjack, Dreadstar, and Nexus. So, and I'm pretty sure that this Crossroads issue number 5 is my first actual real memory of the character.
Yeah.
And again, the covers are all these nice painted Steve Rude covers, so they look really good sitting on the shelf back in 1988, 1989, whenever they came out. And I don't remember if I picked any of them up. And if I had, I don't remember if I read them, but that's as far back as I can confidently go. Actually, this was not, excuse me. Well, that says 1985. That's got to be a typo. Because it's funny, issue one says July. I'm on Comics Price Guide. Issue one says July 1988. Issue two
Hmm.
says August 88. Issue three, September of 88. But issue four says October of 1985. So either the 88s are wrong or the 85 is wrong. I'm going to go with the 85 is wrong. It was 1988.
Gotcha.
But 85 to 88, at some point in there, I saw these Crossroads issues. And that is probably where I was first introduced to Nexus. Though I have not read before our first 5 here, have not read any Nexus comics.
But talk about an iconic or the design. I remember that catching my eye, even though I didn't know anything else about him or the book. I just thought that was really a cool superhero look. Didn't even know anything about the premise, which is definitely different than what your standard superhero does.
Yeah, he kind of has to me a Doctor Solar,
Oh
appearance.
yeah, the Man of the Atom. Yeah,
Yeah, with the eye piece and the tighter suit, just a different color scheme. So he kind of has that look to me.
yeah.
Um, but then again, I mean, there's only so much you can do with a superhero costume.
Right, right.
So, Mike, what did you think after reading the first 5 issues? What did you think about this version of Nexus that Mike Barron and Steve Rude present to us?
I think it was. I mean, it's weird trying to talk about a new character 40 some odd years later, but
I
I
guess
can
is it 40? Is
imagine.
it 45? Would this be
I
45
guess it
years?
would. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but I mean, it's interesting. You, yeah, the origin comes a little only within an issue or two, but it's like you're dropped right into his universe. He was already fully formed, and I mean, it was just for being independent too. He didn't have any baggage that comes with being part of a bigger company. Um, I mean, without really getting into the whys, I definitely enjoyed the stories, the character, and of course the art. My main experience with Mike Barron before was The Flash, whenever he took over that second volume of The Flash. So yeah, this was a nice. I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Yeah, that was my biggest surprise was the quality of the writing. I was especially after reading Grendel and how sorry bad the writing was, for that particular book. I
Yeah,
was kind of expecting more of the same, and I don't know, maybe I don't know if it was the lower expectation or just that the fact that the writing was so much better. But the writing was better, the art was better. And other than, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit on I thought there was a contradiction in his origin, but
Hmm.
for the most part, the story kind of moved pretty smoothly. It's one of those where, like you mentioned, there's not any baggage associated with the character, so the writer's just dropping you into a hero that's already got all their powers. We're not dealing with the origin. He's just out doing what he does, and then we'll
Yep.
fill in those empty spots, later on as the series progresses.
Yeah. Yeah.
So well, speaking of the origin, how much do you feel like we got of this character's origin in these first 5 issues?
Well, I mean, it's not only did we get it starting with the last third, like the third chapter of issue 2, and then it continued over into issue 3. It really contributed to the story. It wasn't just like, oh, a flashback. It was Horatio Hellpop. There's your
Yeah,
alliteration for the day. Who's the alter ego of Nexus.
which is a terrible name, by the way.
It really is. Yeah. I
Apologies to
mean,
all the Horatios out there, but
I don't
yeah,
understand. Well, I mean, anyway, he's relating it to this woman named Sandra Beale, I believe was her name.
that
Yeah,
sounds right.
she kind of snuck over to this moon base of his, Ilum, to, using the uh saying that she was, only had a little bit of oxygen, needed to refuel, needed whatever, get her supplies up, and it lets her land on the moon, and then says, "Hey, I'm actually a reporter, and I want to tell your story." And he, by issue 2, he's already kind of fallen, or they're falling for each other. So
Mhm.
yeah, so we get a good origin, and not that we get that we've seen in the first 5 issues that we're reading here, the full understanding of these powers and how they work. Because after the basic origin, they get into the next plot line, and the villains and stuff, and they start introducing more characters. All of that was good though, because I wouldn't want to learn everything there is about this immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's better when it's kind of parsed out in pieces over time.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so let's talk a little bit about the about the origin. So, I am, you open this up, you get your first little splash of Nexus in his tank, and he's dreaming, right? And he dreams of Earth. Okay,
Hmm.
and I took this to be a memory dream. These very very first pages where he's in a Paraguayan prison. All
Yep.
right, he's being tortured. All right, and then he wakes up. But when you compare that to the origin later on that we get, where he's the son of we'll just say a planetorial dictator who falls
Yeah.
in love with not quite a peasant, but falls in love with a peasant, and then ends up destroying his planet to save it,
Yeah.
which was kind of weird, and then they find Ilum, just kind of just kind of out there.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of felt like that was a little bit of a contradiction in the origin, um, because well, I just don't know. That would be something that I would be curious to know if that was ever explained, or if I am misinterpreting this first dream sequence that we get for Nexus. Because again, a lot of what the character does is based on things that he has when he's having these dreams when he's in this tank.
Yeah, I think the first scene is, of course, my first thought was, and I think they even talk about this in the letter column in issue 2, which, by the way, since it was coming out quarterly, they had time to get letters and talk about them in the second issue. But that experience there, I thought that was actually Horatio Hellpop being tortured in the Paraguayan prison.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't, it turns
Okay,
out.
it wasn't. Okay, all
No.
right.
I only know that because they said that it was, I forgot where in the letters column. So
Okay, all right. So then
we aren't
that
the only
cleans
ones
that
that
up.
were, yeah, someone else, there's more people that were confused about that. So
Okay, because I
yeah.
read this, I just picked up the omnibus on Comixology, so I do not have the letter pages. So
Hmm.
I was just left thinking that was him, and I felt like it was even implied when Nexus shows up, and he's like, he knows who it is. That's the villain knows who it is that's kind of coming for him, because
Yeah.
he kind of recognizes it. So he even says, um, because he had you hid from your victims, you changed your name, but you cannot hide from my dreams. So it was
Yeah.
just kind of an odd thing. So
But it was also very much it's like early on, and it might have been one of his first, you know, I want to say adventures, his first
mhm.
missions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we found that out somewhere. So how this how the big bad knew who he
hmm
was, I'm not sure, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it was. I mean, I guess he had established a name at some point, so
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
it could be early on, because
Yeah.
they obviously had to have known who he was. So he's had at least, a couple of activities before this. So
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, all right, well, good. I'm glad that they cleared that up then in the letter columns because, like, I was like, man, it's just like a pretty quick contradiction there, and I had just decided it was because they moved from. Well, I wasn't for sure where Volume 1 stopped and Volume 2 started. And I guess Volume 1 is just all the black and white issues. So, like, the first three
hmm
issues are black and white. And then the fourth and fifth issue, where we get a new number one, are in color. Um,
And the first three are they're not only black and white, they're in magazine size
mhm,
format, and then they go to regular comic size with the next volume.
okay.
Yep.
All right. So, power set. Let's talk about power set. So, what powers are displayed by the by Nexus? Good old Horatio.
Well, yeah, Horatio. Uh, the flight, of course, he can
Mm-hmm.
survive in space. He's got this sort of vague, indescript energy projection, but it seems to be quite powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
we learn that it's somehow derived from suns. Are they? It's pulled out of suns or stars or something. But there's more to it than that, I think. And then
Yeah.
it's just he's durable. He can take, he can take a hit, and he's got this for not, I guess not foretelling things, but the dreams tell him basically where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I hate to just say, since we're talking about Superman next, he's basically Superman, but just with a different, I don't know, guiding light maybe, as opposed to what
Oh,
Superman
yeah.
has. Yeah, because he's
I mean,
basically all powerful. I mean, you got some type of energy production, you got the flight, he's kind of can just do whatever. So,
yeah, his moral compass is way different than
hmm
Superman. I mean, it's not that, I mean, they don't explain this in these issues, but later you learn that he
see, you
actually is in.
cheated, you went later. So,
Oh, I didn't know. I mean, well, I'm researching the guy,
oh,
so
okay, all right,
it's he's under some sort of it's mentally and physically painful until he deals with whatever he dreamed about, whatever
okay.
big bad guy he dreamed about. He has to act on it or it affects him negatively. So he's basically got some mission from the cosmos to go get rid of some of the worst despots there are out there. Yeah.
But he doesn't always quote unquote deal with them, kind of like what we saw the second person he went after.
Mm,
He basically, was, of course, I guess that wasn't from the
that was a
dreams though, right?
contract or
That was a
whatever. Yeah.
contract. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. It was different. So,
Yeah, right off the
okay.
bat, issue two, he has this guy show up,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell by looking at him, he looked like a bad guy, but
Mm-hmm.
he was promising, hey, I can relieve you from these tormenting dreams if you go complete this hit on this guy who is known as, and it was confirmed was that he was a mass murderer, killed,
Mm-hmm.
civilizations and stuff like that. But it came down to it, he couldn't do it for that reason. And that, of course, had ramifications with the guy that was contracting with him, which leads to the next storyline.
Right. Yeah. So, but again, it's kind of like, a slightly different moral compass. So,
Yeah, and we were talking about powers. I would actually, having seen in, I think it was in issue three, part of the origin story, or maybe the second part after the origin story was completed, whenever he is showing Sundra around his moon base, and he's basically he can create.
hmm
I called it in my notes. He's like got like Dr. Manhattan style powers to a
powers.
point here. and I don't know how much that develops or changes over time, but wow, I was that's
Mhm.
first, even the way he was kind of like floating with his legs akimbo, legs
Yeah.
crossed and just floating up in the air like Dr. Manhattan.
Or, of course, I guess it'd be this predates Dr. Manhattan,
Oh yeah, it
right?
sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you have to wonder how much this influenced, if it did, anything that happened in Watchmen. So
Yeah, maybe.
that's a good catch, Mike.
Well, I can take what they call it, a can of corn. Yeah, I can catch a can of corn as it falls
Oh,
off the
okay.
shelf. Yeah.
There you go. Well, this is a question that I feel like we're going to have to either adjust how we do the first fives, because how
Yeah.
closely does this version of the character match what we see in comics today? I've not read any Nexus before, so I have no comparison. So it's just
Yeah.
like, maybe when we're doing these first fives, we need to be thinking in terms of characters that we're reading now that
Hmm.
we can kind of reference back to and kind of have some comparison. So I don't have anything here on what's the same as what's different. Do you have anything to throw out there?
Yeah. Not unless I can count whatever I look up in my research, but from what I could tell, it seems pretty much the same. Is that he his, still got dreams that compel him to kill mass murderers. Doesn't like the obligation, but there's, I think, of course, by the time we get to the current day, we know a lot more about him. And one thing I learned, and by the way, folks, I bought this entire collection, every doggone Nexus story that I'm aware of, and Scott probably aware of, is from Scott
Yeah.
a few months ago at a very reasonable bargain, you might say,
Mhm.
price. And
And that's the reason why we're doing this, because it's like Mike's like, well, I got to read them before I get rid of them. I don't know why I bought them, so I thought, well, let's just do that as our next first five, and then you can decide if you want to get rid of them or not.
right.
And
And ironically, now I'm like, man, I kind of like this. Maybe I'll keep him. Uh,
because if you
but
tell Mike, all you gotta do is tell Mike, like, hey, I got this complete run of this series, and I'll
oh,
sell it to you cheap, and he's just like, yes, give me.
I'm such an easy mark. Even that Dennis knows that from Campus Comics. You just have to mention something. But no, I can't remember I was going with that. But
Well, you had said that you had bought these from me, and then
I was
oh, we
saying that
were.
because of a reason. I think because I have the opportunity to go. I keep reading
Mm-hmm.
and find out what
Yeah.
happened. Oh, I was going to say is that it's not an easy series to make sure you have every issue because a la Hellboy, you don't have like issue 1 through 100.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of little mini series that are renumbered 1 through 3 with a
Mm-hmm.
subtitle. So I did try to cross-reference all that whenever I was putting them in CLZ, but I think I've got everything unless there's something in the last year or so that came out.
Okay. Let's see. There was stuff. Well, there was stuff that returned in 2012. I'm also on the Wikipedia page. So he was in
Okay.
Dark Horse Presents, several issues, and in 2019 there was a collection of Nexus newspaper strips that
Hmm.
got published in 2021, and then uh, there's a well, I don't know. I'm not sure there's more or not. So, but yeah. Anyway, how about okay, moments you want to call out here in these first five issues? So what are some of the things? What's the first thing that you want to shout out, Mike?
This is my favorite part, and we'll just go back and forth. The
Okay.
first one is in issue 1. I like that Mike Barron gives us a pronunciation guide starting with the name of the moon base or the moon that his base is on. I would have been saying Elam or something like that, but it's pronounced Ilam.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I noticed also in that issue that his energy projection it it zigzagged around that first bad guy's
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, just like Darkseid's Omega effect.
Omega. Okay. Yeah.
Take 90-degree turns. I thought that was cool too.
So like he could control it. Not he could just not only could he shoot it, but he could control it.
Yeah.
Or I guess the question is, did it know that that wasn't the target? So does the
Yeah.
energy attack have the sentience, or is he able to control the energy attack? And I don't feel like we get an answer to that.
No, but if I had to put money on it, I would say the latter. I would say that there must be something that wherever he's getting these powers from, it's preventing him from killing innocents.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, if you remember in the origin story, he killed his own father for for his father had wiped out the entire civilization to save them from
Hmm.
something. And yeah, so
Because that was after he'd also destroyed his two quote unquote imaginary friends,
hmm
which we're not for sure if they were imaginary or not,
yeah,
because he was the only one that ever saw them.
yep.
Um, yeah, got to talk about the art. Obviously, the art is really, really solid. I do actually prefer the look of the comic once it gets to color in the second volume.
hmm
So I felt that it was, I don't know, I like it was better at that point. I thought so.
It was, it took getting used to for me. I was, used to the black and white. Then when I went to color, I thought, man, that's like almost a little overwhelming. But then the story's still so good, the art's still so
Yeah.
good. You just, you get right into it.
All right. What do you got next, Mike?
Did you notice in issue 2, whenever Sundra shows up, she works for some organization called the Baffin Information Access System, which if you look at her press badge, what does that stand for? What's the initials of that? Are they acronym?
I'm trying to find it, but it was the Bathan information, BI, uh, uh,
AS.
AS
Access
bias. Okay,
Bias, and it's a news
bias. Yeah,
organization. I'm like, what? That's pretty clever.
yeah, yeah. That very that feels very 80s. You know.
Right, right,
Yeah.
yeah. I did find an error, which one of the other, in fact, it was T.M. Maple. You remember him, the Mad Maple, the
Okay.
prolific letter writer
Letter
for,
writer. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
He noticed, and I had noticed earlier because it's in my notes before I read the letter column, but there's a place on like page 27 of issue 1. Sundra talks about it being the year 2424, but that predates even an earlier flashback that was to 2461. And
61.
they
Hmm.
admitted, yeah, you caught us in a mistake, is what they told Maple.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. They could have explained that away with it being a because of the dream. That was the wrong because that first date is in the dream sequence at the very
Oh,
beginning. So they could have
hmm
very easily said, well, that's because that first date was in a dream, not in yeah, the year 2481 is on the
yeah,
very first page,
right.
and then he dreams of year 2461. So
Yeah.
they could have explained that away,
Yeah.
or he's living time differently. They could have also used that.
Could,
So
yeah, could
who
be.
knows? Let's see. What other moments do you have you want to call attention to, Mike?
Issue 2 had on page 16 had a couple of guys that were part of this group of bad the villains or whatever that were black guys, and their dialogue is like straight from the 70s. And I'm like, really? Can you not think? I mean, is it the stereotype have to uh, you know make it all the way
Oh,
to the 25th century? It just
yeah.
seemed a little silly. Oh, gosh. On page 35 of issue 1, Nexus, you know what kind of bed he has?
No.
It's a waterbed. It's part of they like the back matter. They had like a diagram of his headquarters, and it shows his bed. It says in parentheses waterbed or something like
Waterbed.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So I
also
thought, okay,
very,
that
very 80s. Yeah.
yes. I mean, I had one in the 80s, so oh man. Uh, I
I'm
mean,
just kind of like flipping through. There's not a whole lot of it was really surprising, in that second issue where we talked about this already, where he's contracted to go kill this obvious, dictator, but as he's going, it's just like, well, the dictator's very well liked by his people and the people around him and his
mhm.
family, and I don't know if Nexus just kind of caught on to that or what the case was, but
Yeah.
yeah, and for him to not eliminate him, that was kind of a surprise.
It just tells me that he couldn't make himself do what he the only thing that can make him do it is the dream compulsion,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. Did you I read again in the newsletter part or the news column, um it's on Baxter paper. And I was wondering what's, this paper is a little thicker, and then I realized, well, yeah, it's that is true. It is They printed this, which was also a big thing in the early 80s, printing on Baxter paper.
Hmm. Because you had what, Titans, Teen Titans was one of the first
Oh
ones, and
yeah.
was Vigilante one of the first ones as
I
well?
think it,
Yeah,
yeah. I think the very first one might have been Camelot 3000.
I think you are correct. I was trying to come up with some of the other titles around that time. So
Outsiders, the Legion,
okay, right.
the the Legion of Superheroes. That volume, it was like 60 some odd issues, was
Hmm.
all Baxter. So yeah, it was all early to mid 80s.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well, it was first comic. Well, that was well. The first three were the magazines. Was the Baxter paper on issues 1 and 2 of the Capital
Mm.
series?
of the volume two, yes,
Yeah,
it
the
was.
volume 2. Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Yep, sure was.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Any other moments you wanna
Um,
call out?
just quick reference to the plot of the it's like or the plot line in this in those last two issues that we reviewed. Um, it's one of the premises is that there is a slaver that sold the heads of who he captured to
Mhm.
another bad guy who would use those heads sort of telepathic or whatever powers
Mhm.
they connected to a system. And there were when you look at this big, almost like a coliseum, all those heads, and they're alive, but yet it's
Mhm.
just really creepy and weird. It was something. I found that to be fascinating, and not a
So
yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say. Then you also have there's a question of the origin of his powers, right? So they keep talking about this PFG. Was it
a
personal
fusion deal.
fusion generator? Was it
Hmm.
personal or portable or I can't remember what the P was for.
I forgot.
They
Yeah.
say that it is. It's but and then of course there's talk about his power. Every time he uses his power, a star blinks out,
Yeah.
and of course he denies it. And you have the other the other super powered person that he fights at some point who is basically beats him until the whatever I can. And what's bad is now I can't remember exactly what happened that allowed him to defeat the guy that was overpowering him.
Oh, it was
Oh, they
the
broke up the heads, right?
yeah, one of the other
Yeah.
characters actually um disconnected this bad guy's powers from the
Mm-hmm.
heads and
Yep.
redirected it back to Nexus. Yeah.
So he, like I said, so he denies, and I guess they have the out. It would be interesting to know if we learn later on that his powers did cause the destruction of stars or not. So,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, making them blink out. Yeah.
hmm now I'm going to say that this has a very invincible feel to it. So because you have kind of like this cosmic story, you have these very very powerful individuals. This oh, and now I can't remember his name, even though I just said it on the cover of the Crossroads issue. Let me see if I can find it again here real fast.
Oh, mm.
Um,
Badger or
no, not Badger. The Luther, was it Luther? No, Judah.
Judah? Yeah,
Judah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Judah
Right.
Maccabee, right?
He's Dave's son. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
So he kind of reminds me of Alan the Alien from Invincible. He's kind of there, kind of super powerful. So it's just
Hmm.
like you have to wonder. If I've always described Invincible as what if Peter Parker were Superman.
Oh, yeah.
But you could argue that there's a little bit of Nexus story inside of Invincible as well. So I would say that if somebody likes Invincible and wants something that goes a little bit further back, this might be an interesting read for them.
Yep, definitely.
All right. So do you have a favorite issue?
Yeah, I had it in my head, but I was just typing it down so I have in my notes for future reference. But I'm gonna say issue three of the first volume, so it was magazine size, and they even had to make us a little bit bigger than magazine size because, well, I'm getting out of line here. I like it because it's the second half of the origin story, but
Mhm.
also because it has this little flexi comic. They call it a flexi comic, but it's a record, a flexible record that you can play sort of the soundtrack. If you take it out, put it on a record player, you can play a soundtrack that goes along with reading it. And I'm like, all right, I've got to find there's got to be a recording of this somewhere out there on the
Hmm.
internet. I got to find that because I'm not going to take it out of this book. It
No,
just goes against all of our comic collecting,
that's right. You
instincts.
don't
So
cut the Marvel value stamp. You don't you don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit in the wind. You don't pull the record out of the Nexus comic.
that's right. We all understand that. All of us
That's
that
right.
like comics. So.
Oh yeah, we get it. So
What about you?
I'm with you. I really actually enjoyed the origin story.
Yeah.
The kind of the spread the two issues. So I guess it'd be the second and third issue.
Hmm.
I kind of liked seeing what's nice, I guess, I don't know if it's because, well, it's a new character, but sometimes when you get the origin, you're disappointed.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes when a character has a mysterious origin, they finally get around to telling the origin, you're like, ah, that kind of stinks. But
Yeah.
this wasn't disappointing. So,
Almost like Baron and Rude they still had the enthusiasm. It was early on, and
mhm,
they didn't. Yeah, if you wait too long, you kind of lose your.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. I really really enjoyed the origin story, but I was pleasantly surprised reading this that I wasn't just like, oh, how much longer is this going to last? It was the storytelling was actually really really solid
Yeah, it was very
in
crisp. It
this.
was very.
Hmm.
It didn't like. Yeah, you didn't like get bored, and I went through them pretty quickly. It wasn't super dense at
No.
all. It was really done well.
Yeah, yeah. So part of me wonders if I had been reading this in the 80s, would I be nostalgic for it now? Kind of like I am with
Right.
Micronauts and ROM, because it
Yeah.
was some books that I did read, if I would have, you know, come into this a little bit differently if I had read it earlier on and not waited until 45 years after the character was created
Yeah.
to really sit down and read something from him.
Uh,
So
Better late than never.
better late than never. So do you want to grade? Do you want to give these a grade?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Uh, do you want to go? Want me to go first?
I
Or do you want
either
to go?
way, I got my grade if you want to hear me
Okay.
first, but
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Let
okay,
me think
so
about it.
all right, so I'm gonna go fine very fine, which is 7.0 on the scale. I'm not in any way disappointed that I read this. I don't feel like it's something that I'm going to, actively pursue reading moving forward.
Hmm.
But if somebody is nostalgic for 80s comics and wants something with an Invincible like feel, this is definitely something that would be worth mentioning. And I just know from selling at comic shows that there's a lot of people right now that have that nostalgia for some of the stuff from this time period. I have people asking for Grimjack on a regular basis and Badger and a lot of these first characters. So I now I'm starting to see it a little bit. A lot of the other characters, like when we did Grendel, it's like, oh man,
Yeah.
that was just
Yeah.
hard to get through. But this
Yeah.
was not difficult to get through at all. So,
Yeah.
and
No.
I guess I'm gonna have to, like I said, I bought the entire first volume of the omnibus. Maybe I need to go ahead and just finish it because I'm about halfway through it, I guess, after reading these issues. So I might as
Yeah.
well just
Yeah.
keep it open and just keep flipping the page and see what happens. So
I
I
mean,
might
yeah.
continue it.
I wouldn't blame you. And I mean, I've got all of the comics,
Yeah,
and I am going to. I mean, I say that like a lot of times, but
yeah.
uh, and just don't get to it. But it's going to stay in my queue to read. Let's put it that
Okay,
way.
there you go. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And I'm giving it a very fine plus. I think
Okay.
uh I just think it's I what's the word I want to use? It's just like it wasn't often that you got this kind of quality.
Hmm.
And from I remember Grendel, and I was like, yeah, that just you could tell he was just
Just
really
getting
young and
started.
getting
Yep.
it. This it feels like, man, Barron and Rude knew what the heck they were doing. If I knew more about art, somebody read and said in the news column that you could tell that he was sort of still learning a little bit about maybe his editorial, talking about how he's learning as he goes, but he's still young. And oh, I forgot to mention that the cover of issue one is actually Paul Galassi. He was
Hmm.
also buddies with that group, and I love him. I love his art. The first
Yeah.
two issues were that, and then Rude takes over. But
Yeah.
um, No, I am going to give it a very fine 8.5
Wow,
easily.
that's
Yeah.
that's pretty high, Mike. I mean, that's super high.
Yeah, I know. I'm very but I guess I'm always thinking about how it compares to its other contemporary books of the time,
Yeah.
and maybe that's what's pushing it up. But you compare it to some other stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
if you compare it to what we're reading next,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think there should be room for several points difference
Hmm.
between this and what we're getting ready to talk about.
Very
And
true.
you don't leave a lot of room,
I know. I'm bad
is
about
what I'm
that.
going to say. Yeah,
I'm just a
there's
happy
not much
person.
room. I
I'm just
know. It's
happy.
just like, yeah, just everything's great. Everything's great. You kick me in the shins. That's great. Great. I needed a good kick in the shins.
I needed a good one. Yeah. Oh, shoot. Well,
All right. So
um,
final thoughts. Final thoughts.
final thoughts are I am more than happy now that I bought this collection from you of Nexus, and I'll keep you posted as I read along. Once I'm still in this new house trying to get unsettled, unpacked, put everything where it's supposed to be. So I haven't, my reading has declined, but I'm going to keep this in the queue and I'll keep you posted.
All right, so up next, we're going to talk about Superman Secret Identity. Now, the reason why we're talking about Superman Secret Identity is this year at the Metropolis Superman celebration, I got to sit down and have a meal with Don Kramer and Stuart Sager, and I asked them, well, what are some comics that you think people should read? And the first thing that Don Kramer mentioned was this title. And it's like it was almost without hesitation. He's like, "Boom, Superman's Secret Identity." And I'm going to say that if, as we the list of things that I got from these two guys, Don Kramer regularly came back to Kurt Busiek uh, works. So we might be doing some more Kurt Busiek stuff in the future, just because I want to try to read. I got a much longer list than I normally get, so it may take us a while to get through these things. Uh, but yeah, so Mike, I noticed that you had a hardcover of this. You already were the proud owner of this title.
Yes, and the story
Okay.
behind that is I had forgotten I had it actually when we
Oh, okay.
decided to take Mr. Kramer's recommendation. Um, I bought this at a shop in the UK, and
Oh,
this is basically a UK distributor, publisher slash distributor called Eagle Moss, and they
okay.
basically repackage the DC Comics graphic novel collections. So I bought it and a few other kind of notable storylines from from this shop. I guess called Sci-Fi World in Margate. And yeah,
Okay.
I was glad that I have it, and we'll get into the whys here shortly.
Yeah. All right. So, as mentioned, written by Kurt Busiek, art by Stuart Immonen. Uh, yeah, we'll talk. I'm sure we'll start talk more about that as we
Mhm.
as we move through this. So, I think you're going to handle the synopsis, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, first I'm gonna give a quick premise. So this
Okay.
whole story is, and by the way, this was a four-issue prestige book that came out individually back in 2004. And of course, I'm reading on the collection. And Scott, you read it. Did you say you had the physical?
Nope. I read this on the DC Comics Infinite.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um, So the premise is you got Clark Kent, and he's an ordinary Kansas teenager who shares his name with the fictional Superman, as it happens. And so, in a world where there's no superheroes, or where they only exist in comics, kind of like Earth Prime,
Mhm.
he grows up being, he's kind of like teased because of the coincidence. I thought that was an interesting. I like that part of the premise. Anyway, he discovers he can fly. So I've got a short synopsis for all four of these issues, and we'll start with issue one, which was called Smallville. Clark Kent grows up in rural Kansas, constantly teased because he shares a name with the fictional Superman. He's an ordinary kid in an ordinary world until one night he suddenly develops real superpowers. Terrified and exhilarated, begins testing his abilities in secret, unsure why this is happening or what it means. His life changes forever as he realizes he can fly, lift impossible weight, and see beyond human limits. Issue 2 is called Metropolis, and now
Do you want
Clark.
to do you want to
Yeah.
talk about issue one before we move on, or you just want to get the synopsis out of the way?
Yeah, I think we'll do that because my notes I didn't break down by I don't know where they were if I'd be talking about something in one, two, three, or four. So
Right. Okay.
I'm if I can do that. So in issue 2, they called Metropolis, and Clark now is a young adult. He leaves home to build his life, trying to separate himself a bit from the name. He does keep his powers hidden, and he just quietly helps people when he can. And while navigating work and his independence and identity, he meets Lois. Of course, that was a setup that his buddies would thought would be funny, but the joke's on them because it worked out. And her last name's not Lane, but it is Lois. Anyway, she sees him for something other than who he's like supposed to be, the whole Clark Kent thing, Superman thing. Their relationship becomes the emotional anchor of this double life, and as Clark learns to balance secrecy with connection. Um, you know, yeah, sure. If you want to stop and talk a little bit about some of these things, because I think you might have some individual comments, we can do that.
Well, I'll let you go because I did not take very good notes. I actually just finished
Oh,
reading this morning, and I guess the first thing my first comment is, wow,
yeah,
this was so good. It's
yeah,
like, how did I not know about this book? And I think it's because it came out in a time period where I was just before I got back in to comics. I think is whenever
yeah.
this came out. So like I wasn't buying or reading books, in a there's about a 10 to 15 year time span where I'd stopped reading and then got
Hmm.
back into it later on. And I think this is in towards the tail end of that time period. So I was just like, I am, I am so blown away by this story.
Yeah. Individual little points, I can't really, I don't really want to try to get it because all of my notes really are about the feeling I got from this story
Oh yeah.
overall. So, I mean, it is. First thing you think, well, this is Superman Earth Prime. Well, eventually they're going to tell the story of how he meets other superheroes or how he moves to, how, get more answers. But there's more to say about that. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead to issue 3, and it's called Fortress.
Okay.
Clark and Lois build a life together, but secrecy becomes more complicated as government agencies begin investigating unexplained rescues. Clark's powers grow stronger, and the risks of a discovery escalate. He creates a hidden refuge, his personal fortress, where he can operate safely. And as he and Lois start a family, Lois must confront the possibility that his children may inherit his abilities and what that means for their future. And then lastly, issue 4 is Tomorrow. Clark's daughters develop powers of their own. That's a whole interesting chapter of this book. I was fascinated by it. It wasn't like they just, hey, mom, dad, guess what? No, it was, yeah, he finds out sort of by accident, even though they might have suspected it. Anyway, it forces the family to really navigate a world that has increasingly suspicious of the existence of a real Superman. And Clark grows older, wiser, and more reflective, questioning the purpose of his abilities and the legacy he will leave. The story closes with a meditation on heroism, family, and the quiet ways extraordinary people shape the world, even when they choose to remain unseen. Yes. And reading this book was an evolution. And I think that Music designed it. First of all, Stuart Eminem, when somebody say his name, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember him doing, you know, kind of cartoony style of the Legion of Superheroes. This art is like some of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really
It's,
good.
oh my gosh, it's so
And I
good.
really like where he has the Golden Age Superman panels,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
are when he's reading a book or it's the comic book version of Superman, how different that looks
Yeah.
from the standard art in the issue. It's just like, it's just like right out the first 2 pages, like you get Golden Age Superman, and then here's Clark Kent. It's just
Yes.
like I really really enjoyed. Um, but keep going.
Yeah. It's truly like what it would be if Superman showed up on our Earth. Not talking about like the fictional our Earth, like Earth
Hmm.
Prime, our Earth, truly, like, oh, what the world's going on here? Um, I, I, I feel
Well,
bad
okay,
about
I'm just going to say
hogging the time
that
here.
no, that's all right. No, you take as much time as you want, but I'm just going to say nobody ever believes that if somebody's last name was Kent, that they
Yeah,
would name their kid Clark.
right.
That's me being sarcastic. All
True.
right, because
Yeah.
obviously that is something that somebody would do. Let's take
Yes.
Nicolas Cage, for example. He
Yes.
named his kid Kal El. All right,
Yes.
so I whenever I used to play a lot of Magic the Gathering, there was this guy that came into the game store and he actually named his kid Anakin after Star Wars. So this is
Oh, wow.
100%. And you just feel so sorry
Yeah.
for those people who get named something like that. And this is the result, of what would happen.
Oh, he was just
Yeah,
tormented by his
tormented.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, for being named Clark Kent. Ha ha
Yeah.
ha ha.
Yeah.
Let's set you up with Lois. Ha 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 ha. Or
Yeah.
maybe Lana. I like the Cat Grant joke. That was a good one too. So
Yeah, yeah, there was oh
yeah.
yeah. And I like part of the story where when they decide to have or they have the twin girls, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we didn't name them Lori as in Lamaris or
Uh-huh.
Lana as in Lang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um
There's
they gave was it Jane and oh my gosh,
oh
Carol.
I
Jane
yeah,
and Carol.
I forgot. There was a joke about what Perry and Jimmy, if I remember correctly.
Oh right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna read my notes that I typed these out here and I
Okay.
didn't just like have bullet points like I do sometimes.
All right.
So first of all, it just amazes me that this book never read or received any awards because I looked that up. I think it's one of the most thoughtful and emotionally resonant Superman stories ever been come out. It's got the realism and humanity that keeps it grounded. It's not at all what we expect from a superhero story or trope ever. I mean, we just don't expect this. So my personal feelings is that it was so real feeling that it was almost depressing knowing that he's going to get old. He's not, I mean, Superman's one of those characters you think he'll be around
Mhm.
forever. Well, not in this story. He's going to grow
No.
old eventually and die.
Mhm.
And you get this real melancholy feeling. And Superman's way more Clark Kent than Kal-El or Superman. Uh, the story about the boy, the man, and his family, and how their lives are affected by these unexplained powers. It's not a big bombastic hero versus villain story at all. If anything, it's the government that is the villain,
Yep.
and that's really probably the way it should, yeah, how it would be if
Yeah.
someone like Superman did show up on Earth.
Mhm. Well, this
Yeah,
journalist that he confides in the very first issue, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get the story
yeah,
out. I'm gonna get it out on my terms. I'm gonna hide my identity, and then whenever he kind of backs off from that, it's like there's this person who it's like this is my chance. This is my big shot. I have got to complete this story because it's gonna this Superman is going to make me this well-known journalist, and that's what I want.
mhm,
So I will. So she does some very extreme things to kind of force him out into the limelight, and almost kills a lot of people in the
yeah,
process. So it's
yes,
just how it's like is that I could see somebody in the real world, reacting that way just to kind of for their own selfish motives, to kind of
yes, right,
get their piece of
exactly,
the pie. Yeah.
yes, you're absolutely right. Um, uh, okay, so like I was saying earlier, it's kind of like an evolution. It reads differently at different stages of life that Clark is and Lois is. When he's when you first start reading about him, you think, oh, it's just a entertaining secret identity adventure. But then later, years later, it's just a more thoughtful. You think more about the perspective of what it's like to age and personal growth. He's talking about he is a writer. He's not a newspaper writer, but he is a writer. So there's a lot of that in there, and he's really a good person. He got these powers, and he was already a good person, and it wasn't. I don't know. I had. I guess if there was anything that I was maybe disappointed in, but it kind of dissipated, was that I had this real hankering for answers as to where his powers came from.
Well, they
something
gave you
very,
they gave you those answers later on.
yeah,
So
the yeah,
yeah.
and but they didn't really delve into it, which is
Hmm.
fine. I guess,
Hmm.
that's what being sort of trained in reading comics, superhero comics all these years, you expect that big reveal and really go into it. Um,
The actual origin where you see the scenes where it happens,
yeah,
and not
yes.
just you're just told it in a couple of panels.
Yeah,
So
right, exactly. Um, I changed my mind. Like I said, though, I didn't need to know because by me knowing it probably meant Clark had to know all that, and the mystique would kind of like of the story disappear. I don't know, just like in real life, we don't always get all the answers, and we have to learn. So we have to learn to basically adjust and adapt. So that's my thoughts about it.
yeah.
I just really thought it was great.
There were a few storytelling elements where it's like, well, I think he got that, but like especially from the very first Spider-Man movie,
Hmm.
not Superman movie, the very first Spider-Man movie,
Hmm.
where like some of the things where it's like, okay, so he gets his powers, and now when the bully's picking on him, he can just kind of dodge it, or oh, he can take it, not be worried about getting hurt, and even when his big bully shows up to school one day wearing a Superman T-shirt.
Yeah.
That was something that was pulled. That's Flash Thompson in Spider-Man,
Yes.
being Spider-Man's biggest fan as he's knocking Peter Parker down to the ground. It's just
Yes.
like, and it's not that Spider-Man was the movie was the first place to do that, but the Spider-Man movie came out in 2002, and you said this came out in 2004.
Hmm.
That's got to be fresh in the mind.
True. Very true. Yeah.
um, I'm just there are so many things to comment, like the pacing on the story. Now, this is wordy. This is a very wordy
Yeah.
story, and
Hmm.
the pages are the each issue is extra long, right? It's not just a typical 22 page
Yeah.
comic, but it went very quick.
Yes.
Even though it was wordy, it was a very very quick read. So, and that's a tribute to Kurt Busiek. I mean, that just man, when he is on something, he is on.
Yeah.
That is for
Yeah.
sure. So.
I mean, when you write a story in the first person,
Hmm.
narration, it is by its nature very introspective, and that's what you get in a lot of the storytelling when it's not just, word balloon dialogues. I mean, it's also like so close to reality what our government would do that it's like it ticks you off, man. You're like, oh man, even though this kind of one agent sort of like, he worked with him for years, decades
Hmm.
before he retired, but
Yep.
the things that were done, now he's the agent said it was before his time, but some of the things that
Hmm.
were done was really bad stuff that I guess I wouldn't be surprised if the government did some
Yeah.
things.
It was nice at the end to find out that the agent Malloy, I think was his name,
Yeah, yep,
did did kind of protect him. I
yep,
mean, he did what he could to honor his side of the bargain. He obviously had to make some concessions
hmm,
here and there with with this tracking devices and trying to get that to work and stuff like that. But it was good to see that in the end he was trying to do the right thing to the best of his ability.
yeah,
So
yeah,
even if the government not so much, but at
yeah,
least on a personal level, it's like you got to separate the person from the entity, and it's
yes,
just like on the personal level. And that's, I think, what makes this storytelling so good is it's very very personal.
yeah. I mean, I haven't read any Astro City. I still haven't
Me
read the
neither.
Marvels, but all of
Marvels
those
is
are
very very good. I
okay.
can tell you that Marvels is very very good. So yeah.
But these are all books that Kurt Busiek wrote. I
Hmm.
did read Final Night. It was came out in '96 as same time when Justice League was getting back together under Morrison, but it was a kind of a short little mini series that was really well done. And wait a second. No, I
I
think
say
he
Final
didn't do
Night's the one
that.
where the Final Night is where the sun
Where the
goes out,
sun is
right?
going out. I don't think it was
Yeah.
Busiek who wrote it. I think I'm thinking of um, Eminem doing the art.
Oh, okay,
That's
okay.
what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So sorry about that. Yeah, but Busiek, he's just known. He did the Avengers JLA
Mm-hmm.
crossover,
Mm-hmm.
about the same time as this.
Yep.
Um,
He is also there was one of the Avengers reboots early on that he did with Perez also.
yeah. Yep.
So I know I've only read a few issues of that. but I've heard really, really good things about it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
This there. I'm just very happy that we this experience
uh,
was as good as it was. All that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one thing that we have to say is that if you've not read this story and you like Superman even a little bit, you
Yeah.
need to. The next thing you need to read is this book.
Hmm.
This may be the best Superman story that I've ever read. I'm trying to think what Superman stories that I have read that I like better than this. I mean, and you have a few that would be in the discussion, along with things like Kingdom Come. Um, you had your whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, Alan Moore stories. I think are probably in that
Hmm.
discussion. But this may beat him. Well, I guess the downside is it's not a true. I hate to say that it's not a true Superman story because it's not about Clark Kent, who was the alien who landed on Earth and became Superman. So in that sense,
Yeah.
it's not a true Superman story, but it 100% captures the spirit of the character. Um, so it's up there with probably, and I'm not a huge Superman fan. I mean, just to be honest, it's Superman has a problem of how many good Superman stories can there be when you're all powerful. It's just like
Yeah.
that's why every single Superman series, you got okay, so the beloved Christopher Reeves, you get the origin story, then you get the bad guys who are at the power level of Superman, and then it's downhill trash.
Yeah.
And it kind of that's the way most Superman stories are. You've got a certain story arcs that are can be told and retold, and they work very well. And then it's hard to come up with another good story.
Yeah.
This does that. This without going too deep into the origin, it just tells a very human story of of Clark Kent. So
Yeah. Yeah, I was just out of curiosity, I Googled up what's the best, say the top 10 Superman stories
mm-hmm.
ever. And I was going to see if it includes Secret Identity. It has Superman Annual 11. That's the one with Mongol and the Black Mercy that makes
Okay,
him dream. He's in a euphoric type dream that doesn't want to come out of it. It's got Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, like you said.
okay, yeah,
The Death of Superman, I don't know about
yeah.
that.
No, I don't think so. Just because it
Um,
sold a lot doesn't mean that it was good. So
right.
yeah,
Last Sun, that New 52 Action Comics run, first 19 issues. Superman Up in the Sky, which I have that to read on the road show. Oh,
okay.
All-Star Superman. It made the top 10, or it
Okay,
was
yeah,
like
that
number one.
that's and the Superman for All Seasons is another good one. It probably
Yeah.
should be in that list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but
That's
is Secret Identity in that list?
No, it's not.
Okay, then
No.
that list is wrong. I mean, I don't.
I would agree.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
agree. I I don't disagree with that at all. I just think
mm,
it's so different. I think I don't know. It's definitely not what I expected. So,
no, yeah.
in a good way.
So, all right. So I don't know. You have any final thoughts on this? It's like I feel like I did a little bit of a disservice waiting until this morning to kind of finish reading this. I started yesterday
Hmm.
and didn't finish it today, so I didn't get to make a lot of really really good notes about it. But I don't want to
It's
cut you short on any notes that you had.
no, it's not one of those stories that you are like, oh, over in issue 3, there was this, and this happened, and it was
Hmm.
really amazing. It is the totality of it, is the best way
Yes,
I can put it.
and I
And
think you're
so,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Want to rate it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll let you go first since I went first last time.
Okay.
So
Uh, I have to give this. I always risk the chance that I'm gonna sort of like go beyond that bar that Motor Girl set, but
yeah,
I'm gonna say a near mint, 9.4, maybe a near mint plus.
I'm
Um,
I
yeah.
am I'm teetering. I mean, on a graded comic, when you look at 9.2, 9.4, 9.6, there's not a whole lot of difference. You
Hmm.
just looking at the issues like, well, what's the difference?
Hmm.
And it's in there somewhere, and I guess I'm gonna stick with the 9.4, which means I'm gonna have to go out and buy this and put it on my shelf someplace. So I'm gonna have to get it in some shape, form, or fashion to actually have ownership of this because it is so incredibly good, right? So,
Yes.
well, I can't imagine you'd want to give up your copy, Mike. If you did, I would be
Scott,
surprised.
I I can't take it with me. So
Yeah, but you know,
maybe,
it's that's a book that's going to go on a shelf in about with all the
yeah,
rest of my really high end or not high end, but very beloved series. That's a
no,
conversation
yeah,
piece or a reminder. That's I don't have to take it out and read. If I read it, I'm just going to read it on the app. I'm not buying it,
right,
physical copy because I want to read it physical. I'm buying it because that's one that, as a collector, I feel like I need to own, and
yeah,
be reminded
yeah,
of on a regular
yeah,
basis. So,
yeah, yeah. I agree.
yeah, so I'm right there with you. And I'm going to give it a 9.4 because
Okay.
it is definitely close to being the best Superman story, if not the best that I've ever read.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, Mike, you got time for a CLZ shake?
Sure, sure,
All
absolutely.
right, let me
Yeah.
get my app open up here. If you got your app open already, then you can start.
I
If not,
will.
well, let me get out of. I was adding a new issue of ROM to my collection, so I need to get out of ROM. Otherwise, whenever I
Well,
shake,
oh gosh, I wish I had take backs.
well, you can take back. I'm not going to
Yeah.
take mine back though. But if you want to take back, I did it last time because I got, I guess, got another like issue of ROM or something again. So,
Well, I have limited collector's edition number 33. Now, I have pretty much every one of those except for probably okay, this is the feature character in this is Rudolph the Red-Nosed
oh,
Reindeer. I've talked about this before about why
hmm
did Rudolph make the cut 4 or 5 times when a character like Wonder Woman never did for these
oh,
things. And it's a treasury size, and I did happen to pick this up a couple years ago somewhere for a reasonable price. And it's just Rudolph. And yeah, the one that really costs the most is like that first issue, and it's probably $50, $75, and there's no way I'm going to do that. So not much to say there, except it's kind of noted for why DC decided Rudolph was such a premier character that he needed 4 appearances in their big tabloid deal. Okay.
oh. All right. Well, I got Hawkeye Volume 4, Issue number 1. So this is
Oh.
the Matt Fraction, David Asia art. And this
Hmm.
is Matt Fraction had a run between this and Iron Fist that I will stack up against just about any writer. It was
Yeah.
such an incredibly good run. The art style from this series was used as the intro scenes without giving David Aja credit for the Hawkeye limited series, the Disney Plus
Hmm.
series. So that
Yep.
style of artwork was used in the open and closing scenes, and he did not get kudos for that, which is a huge miss by Marvel for not doing that. But if you are even remotely a Hawkeye fan, this is probably the best Hawkeye story. Part of the Fraction run of that series. The art is outstanding. I've actually got this slab 9/8 of this book, so it's one that because it's so good, I have the omnibus, and then I have the
Hmm.
slab copy of issue number 1 because it's one of those 9.2 to 9.4, 9.6 stories that I think everybody who's a comic book fan needs to read. It has Kate Bishop Hawkeye is there. You get
Yep.
introduced to Pizza Dog. You've got the Tracksuit Mafia. It's all right there in this series, and it's just it's just so good.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
you've
I'm glad you
not
picked
read
that
it,
one because I know that's one of your favorites. Yeah.
yeah, I was shocked whenever that came up. It's like here's what happened. I actually when I picked up my phone, it shook a little bit, and this one popped up, and I started to shake again. It's like no, I'm gonna leave that one there.
Good.
So it wasn't an official shake. It wasn't me going, "Here's my shake,"
It
but
was
it
a
shaked
shimmy.
up.
It was
There
a
you go. It was a
CLZ
shimmy,
shimmy.
shimmy. Yeah, it was just enough to make it pop into a book, and it was a good one that popped into. So I'm just sticking with
All
it.
right.
So
That sounds good to me.
full disclosure. So yeah. All
Huh.
right, Mike. So what's coming up on the next episode, which would be what 240 of the Campus Comics Cast?
240, inching up on that big 250.
Yeah,
Uh, 240 is our monthly review of all the new books coming out in a couple months. What do you call it? Previews or pre-orders? It's
pre-orders. Yeah.
looking at the Next Phase catalog and the panels catalog and just kind of like talking about what catches our eye.
And Mike, if somebody wanted to reach out to you besides podcasts at bergcomics.com, how might they do that?
Well, they might reach out at Mike at Comic Shop Roadshow. Oh boy, I can't say it. Mike at comicshoproadshow.com and also on our Campus Comics Cast Facebook page.
And I'm Scott Reed. You can find me at burgcomics.com, burgcomics.com, where there are links to my social media and eBay store. And be sure and congratulate Mike on his new role as the editor in chief of the campus.
I don't know what that entails, but
Yeah,
oh boy,
no,
I got to learn
you're
quick.
probably not going to like it.
I probably aren't. No,
All right, maybe we won't make that change. So you can,
no.
I guess you can turn down the promotion if you want, Mike. So
All right.
all right, and we'll be back soon with pre-orders.
Let me see what it looks like if I turn this overhead light on off. Okay. Just probably does. Yeah. That's because the video that we show all the time is super important. Well, yeah. I don't know why. Yeah.